She walked into his room like she'd done it 1,000 times before, but he was certain they'd never met. Rain was falling hard against the window of Alex's small apartment. The sound was steady, like tiny fingers tapping on glass. He liked this sound. It made him feel safe inside while the world got wet outside. Alex was 24 and trying to finish his college work. His desk was covered with papers, empty coffee cups, and books about buildings and design. He was writing something important for school about how different spaces make people feel at home. The words on his computer screen were starting to blur together. He had been working for 6 hours straight. The apartment was quiet except for the rain. His roommate Jake was supposed to be home soon. They shared this place near the college because it was cheap and close to classes. Alex's room was small but cozy. He had made it his own with pictures on the walls and books everywhere. His grandmother's old blanket sat folded at the end of his bed. It was blue and white with tiny flowers, and it smelled like her house even after all these years. Alex rubbed his eyes and stretched his arms above his head. His neck hurt from looking down at the computer for so long. He thought about making another cup of coffee but decided against it. Too much coffee made his hands shake, and he needed steady hands for drawing building designs. Just then he heard voices in the hallway outside his apartment. One voice was definitely Jake. Alex would know that laugh anywhere. The other voice was softer, higher. A woman's voice. Alex couldn't make out the words, but the voices were friendly, like old friends talking. The front door opened and closed with its usual creak. The apartment door needed oil on its hinges, but Alex and Jake kept forgetting to fix it. Alex heard footsteps in the main room, then Jake's voice again, but quieter now, like he was being polite. Alex figured Jake had brought someone over, maybe a study partner or someone from his psychology classes. The voices moved toward the front door again. Alex heard it open and close once more, then silence. Jake must have left with whoever was visiting. This happened sometimes. Jake was more social than Alex and had many friends who would pick him up for late dinners or movies. Alex didn't mind. He liked having the apartment to himself when he was working on important projects. Alex turned back to his computer and tried to focus on his writing. He was working on a chapter about how certain rooms make people feel welcome, while others make them want to leave quickly. It was interesting work, but hard to put into words. How do you explain the feeling of walking into a place that just feels right? 20 minutes passed. The rain kept falling. Alex had managed to write 2 more paragraphs when he heard something that made him pause. His bedroom door, which he was sure he had left slightly open, was moving. The door opened slowly, like someone was being very careful not to make noise. Alex expected to see Jake, maybe looking for something he had borrowed. Instead, a young woman stepped into his room. Alex had never seen her before in his life. She looked to be about his age, maybe a little younger. Her dark hair was slightly wet from the rain outside. She wore a big, comfortable sweater that looked soft and warm, and regular jeans that had small water drops on them. What happened next surprised Alex more than her appearance. Instead of looking surprised or embarrassed at being in the wrong room, she walked calmly to his bed and sat down on the edge. Not in a way that seemed rude or strange, but like she had done it many times before, like she belonged there. Then she smiled at him. It wasn't the kind of smile you give to a stranger when you realize you've made a mistake. It wasn't apologetic or nervous. It was warm and familiar, like she was greeting an old friend she hadn't seen in a while. Her eyes looked directly at his, and there was something in them that seemed to recognize him, even though Alex was certain they had never met. Alex should have been worried. A person he didn't know was sitting on his bed, in his private room, smiling like she had every right to be there. His first thought should have been to ask who she was or how she had gotten in. Maybe he should have called for Jake or asked her to leave. But none of those thoughts came to him. Instead, Alex felt something very strange. The woman's presence in his room didn't feel wrong or scary. It felt natural, like his room had been waiting for her to complete it somehow. The space between his desk and his bed, which usually felt empty, now felt perfectly balanced with her sitting there. The rain continued to fall outside, creating a quiet, private feeling in the room. The soft light from Alex's desk lamp made everything look golden and peaceful. The woman continued to smile, waiting patiently for him to say something, but not in a way that felt pressured or uncomfortable. Alex found himself staring at her, trying to place her face in his memory. Had they met at school? At the coffee shop where he liked to study? At the library? He went through his recent weeks in his mind, but couldn't find her anywhere in his memories. Yet something about her seemed familiar, like trying to remember, a song you've heard before but can't name. She didn't seem to be in any hurry to explain herself. She looked around his room with interest, like she was noticing changes since the last time she had been there. But Alex was sure she had never been there before. He would have remembered someone like her. Wouldn't he? The whole situation felt like something from a dream, where strange things happen but somehow make perfect sense while you're experiencing them. Alex realized he was holding his breath and forced himself to breathe normally. He saved his work on the computer, though he wasn't sure why. Maybe because some part of him knew this moment was about to change everything, and he wanted to be ready for whatever came next. The woman's smile grew a little wider, as if she could see him processing the situation and found it amusing in a kind way. Her presence filled the room without overwhelming it. Alex's small space, which usually felt cramped when anyone else was in it, seemed to expand to accommodate her perfectly. Outside, the rain kept falling, wrapping around the apartment like a protective blanket, keeping the rest of the world at a safe distance while this impossible moment continued to unfold. The woman spoke first, breaking the quiet spell that had settled over the room. Her voice was soft and warm, like someone talking to a close friend. "You're still working on your project about buildings and how they make people feel," she said, looking at his computer screen. "The one about spaces that feel like home." Alex felt his heart skip. How could she know about his college project? He had barely talked about it with anyone except his professors. Even Jake didn't know the details of what Alex was writing about. Alex stared at her, searching for any clue about who she might be. She continued talking as if they were in the middle of a conversation that had been going on for hours. "You still leave your coffee cups everywhere," she said with a gentle laugh, pointing to the 3 empty mugs scattered around his desk. "And you're still using your grandmother's blanket, the blue one with the tiny white flowers." Alex's mouth fell open slightly. The blanket had been his grandmother's, and very few people knew that story. His grandmother had made it by hand when Alex was little. She had passed away when Alex was in high school, and the blanket was one of the few things he had kept from her house. How could this stranger know something so personal? "I'm sorry," Alex finally managed to say, "but I don't think we've met. I'm sure I would remember you." The woman tilted her head to one side like she was thinking about something puzzling. "We met 2 months ago," she said simply. "At the coffee shop near campus, the one with the big windows and the comfortable chairs. You were sitting by the window, drawing pictures of old buildings in your notebook." Alex tried to remember. 2 months ago would have been early fall. He did go to that coffee shop often to study and work on his drawings. It was called Luna's, and they made the best hot chocolate in town. But he couldn't remember meeting anyone there, especially not someone as memorable as her. She stood up from the bed and walked over to look at his drawings on the wall. She moved around his room like she had been there before, comfortable and familiar. "You showed me your sketch of the old library downtown," she continued. "The one with the stone steps and the big wooden doors. You said buildings are like people. They have personalities and moods." Alex watched her examine his artwork. She was right about the library drawing. It was one of his favorites, and it was hanging right where she was looking. But he drew lots of buildings, and he talked about architecture with many people. Surely he would remember having such a deep conversation with someone like her. "We talked for 3 hours, she said, turning back to face him. "You told me about your theory that some spaces hold memories, like invisible recordings of all the important things that happened there. You said that's why some rooms feel happy and others feel sad, even when they're empty." This made Alex sit up straighter. That was exactly what his college project was about, how buildings and rooms could hold emotional energy from the people who had spent time in them. But he had only developed this idea recently. Had he really been thinking about it 2 months ago? The woman sat back down on his bed, this time closer to where he was sitting at his desk. "You invited me to visit your apartment sometime," she said. "You said your room was a perfect example of a space that felt like home, and you wanted to show me how you had arranged everything to make it feel comfortable." Alex felt confused and slightly dizzy. The conversation she was describing sounded like something he might say, especially if he was excited about his work. When Alex got passionate about architecture and design, he could talk for hours, but he had no memory of this meeting at all. "I don't remember," Alex said honestly. "I'm sorry, but I really don't remember meeting you." Instead of looking hurt or offended, the woman smiled again. It was the same warm, understanding smile she had given him when she first sat down. "That's okay," she said. "You were really stressed that day. You said you had 3 big projects due and hadn't been sleeping well. Sometimes our minds let go of things when we're overwhelmed." This was true. 2 months ago had been one of the hardest times in Alex's college career. He had been working on multiple assignments, staying up late, drinking too much coffee, and generally feeling like he was drowning in work. There were whole days from that period that felt blurry in his memory. The woman reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She scrolled through something, then turned the screen toward Alex. "I took a picture," she said. Alex leaned forward to look at the phone screen. There, clear as day, was a photo of him sitting at a table in Luna's coffee shop. He was wearing his favorite green sweater and had his notebook open in front of him. Sitting across from him, smiling at the camera, was the same woman who was now sitting on his bed. Alex stared at the photo. It was definitely him. Definitely her. Definitely Luna's coffee shop. The lighting suggested it was taken during the day, probably in the afternoon when Alex usually went there to study, but he had absolutely no memory of this moment. "You took the picture," the woman said softly. "You said you wanted to remember the conversation because it had given you new ideas for your project." Alex looked from the phone screen to her face, and back again. The evidence was right there, but his mind felt blank. How could he forget meeting someone so interesting, someone who understood his work so well? "What's your name?" Alex asked, realizing he should have asked this question much earlier. "Lily," she said. "And you're Alex. You told me you chose this apartment because the windows face east so you get good morning light for drawing." She was right about that too. The morning light was one of the reasons Alex had wanted this particular room when he and Jake were looking for a place to live. Alex saved his work on the computer again and turned his chair to face Lily completely. Nothing about this situation made sense, but somehow it didn't feel wrong. If anything, her presence in his room felt more natural than being alone. "Why did you come here tonight?" Alex asked. Lily looked down at her hands for a moment, and for the first time since she had entered his room, she seemed a little nervous. "I've been thinking about our conversation for 2 months, she said. "About the things you said about spaces and memories and feeling at home. I kept meaning to take you up on your invitation, but I wasn't sure if you really meant it." Alex wanted to tell her that he didn't remember making any invitation, but something stopped him. Looking at her sitting there, looking at the photo on her phone, hearing her describe conversations that sounded exactly like things he would say. Maybe his conscious mind had forgotten, but some deeper part of him remembered. The rain outside was starting to slow down, changing from heavy drops to a gentle patter. The room felt warm and safe, like a small island of calm in the middle of a confusing world. Alex stared at the photo on Lily's phone for a long time. The more he looked at it, the more details he noticed. His notebook was open to a page of sketches he definitely remembered drawing. There was a half-empty cup of hot chocolate next to his elbow, his usual order at Luna's. Even his messy handwriting was visible on the page, notes about building designs and emotional architecture. But no matter how hard he tried, Alex couldn't pull up any memory of that afternoon. It was like trying to remember a dream after waking up. He could sense that something had happened, but the details stayed just out of reach. "Can I see that photo again?" Alex asked. Lily handed him her phone. Alex zoomed in on different parts of the picture, looking for anything that might trigger his memory. In the background, he could see other people sitting at tables, the familiar artwork on Luna's walls, even the barista behind the counter who worked most afternoons. "This is definitely me," Alex said, more to himself than to Lily. "And this was definitely taken at Luna's. You ordered hot chocolate," Lily said, "with extra whipped cream, and you kept stirring it while you talked even after the whipped cream was completely mixed in." Alex almost smiled at this detail. He did have a habit of stirring his drinks when he was thinking hard about something. It was one of those unconscious things people do when they're concentrating. "What else did we talk about?" Alex asked, handing the phone back to her. Lily's eyes lit up, like she was happy he was finally showing interest in the conversation. "You told me about your grandmother and how she taught you to notice the way different rooms make you feel. You said she could walk into any house and know immediately if the people who lived there were happy or sad." Alex felt a chill run down his arms. His grandmother really had been like that. She had a gift for reading spaces and understanding the emotional energy of places. It was something Alex had always admired about her, and it was part of what had inspired his current project. But he rarely talked about his grandmother with people he had just met. "You also told me about your theory," Lily continued, "that some people are naturally good at creating spaces that feel like home, while others never quite figure it out. You said it wasn't about money or expensive furniture. It was about understanding how to arrange a space so it feels welcoming." This was exactly the kind of thing Alex would say when he got excited about his work. He had spent years thinking about why some places felt comfortable immediately, while others never felt quite right, no matter how long you lived there. Lily stood up and walked over to his bookshelf. Without hesitation, she pulled out a specific book, a thick volume about architectural psychology that Alex had borrowed from the library weeks ago. "You were reading this when I met you," she said. "You had it bookmarked to a chapter about emotional responses to interior spaces." Alex watched as she opened the book to exactly the right chapter. There was his bookmark, a folded piece of paper, with notes written in his own handwriting. The notes were about the same topics Lily had been describing: how rooms hold memories, how spaces can make people feel at home or like outsiders. "How do you know about that book?" Alex asked. "I just got it from the library a few weeks ago." "You showed it to me," Lily said simply. "You were really excited about the research the author had done. You said it proved that your grandmother's intuition about spaces was scientifically accurate." Alex felt like he was putting together a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Everything Lily said rang true. It sounded like conversations he would have, books he would be excited about, ideas he would want to share. But the missing memory made everything feel surreal. Jake's key turned in the front door lock. Alex heard his roommate come into the apartment, drop his backpack, and head toward the kitchen. This seemed like a good opportunity to get some answers. "Jake," Alex called out. "Yeah?" Jake's voice came from the kitchen along with the sound of the refrigerator opening. "Can you come here for a second?" Jake appeared in Alex's doorway a moment later, holding a carton of orange juice. When he saw Lily sitting on Alex's head, his face broke into a big smile. "Hey, Lily," Jake said warmly. "I'm so glad you finally decided to visit. Alex has been talking about meeting someone interesting at Luna's for weeks." Alex felt his world tilt sideways. Jake knew Lily. Jake remembered Alex talking about meeting someone. How was it possible that everyone remembered this except him? "Wait," Alex said slowly. "Jake, you remember me mentioning Lily?" Jake looked confused by the question. "Of course I remember. You came home that day really excited about having a great conversation with someone who understood your building project. You said you'd invited her over but weren't sure if she'd actually come." Jake paused and looked between Alex and Lily. "Is everything okay?" Lily answered before Alex could speak. "Alex is having trouble remembering our first meeting," she said gently. "I think he was really stressed that day." Jake nodded understandingly. "Dude, you were a mess 2 months ago. You were barely sleeping, living on coffee and anxiety. I'm not surprised some things are fuzzy from that time." He took a sip of orange juice. "But you definitely talked about Lily. You said she was the first person who really got what you were trying to say about architecture and emotions." After Jake left to go to his own room, Alex sat quietly for a few minutes, trying to process everything. The evidence was overwhelming. The photo, Lily's detailed knowledge of his work, Jake's memory of him talking about her. Clearly, they had met before, even if Alex couldn't remember it. "I believe you," Alex finally said. "I don't remember our meeting, but I believe it happened." Lily smiled, and this time there was relief in her expression. "Thank you," she said. "I was starting to worry that maybe I had imagined how well we connected that day." Alex looked around his room, seeing it through Lily's eyes. She had been right about everything: his coffee cup habit, his grandmother's blanket, his tendency to get excited about architectural theories. Somehow, in one afternoon 2 months ago, she had learned more about him than most people knew after years of friendship. "Can you tell me more about what we talked about?" Alex asked. "Maybe it will help me remember." Lily settled more comfortably on his bed, pulling her legs up to sit cross-legged. "We talked about your apartment," she said. "You described how you arranged your room to feel like a safe space. You said the desk by the window gives you good light and a view of the trees, and you positioned your bed so you can see the door when you're lying down because it makes you feel more secure." Alex looked around his room with new awareness. He had arranged everything exactly as Lily described, but he had never consciously thought about why. It was interesting that he had been self-aware enough 2 months ago to explain his choices to someone else. "You also talked about your project," Lily continued, "about how you wanted to prove that emotional architecture was a real thing, not just people's imagination. You said you were going to write about spaces that make people feel instantly at home versus spaces that always feel uncomfortable, no matter how you decorate them." "That's exactly what I'm writing about," Alex said, glancing at his computer screen. "Did I really have all these ideas 2 months ago?" "Some of them," Lily said. "But I think I helped you develop them too. We talked about specific examples, like how hospital waiting rooms almost always feel anxious and sad, while good libraries feel calm and inspiring. You said you wanted to study what makes the difference." As Lily talked, Alex began to feel strange flickers of almost memory. Not clear pictures, but emotional echoes of excitement and connection. Maybe his conscious mind had forgotten the meeting, but his subconscious had been carrying the ideas they had discussed together. The rain had stopped completely now, and moonlight was beginning to shine through Alex's window. The room felt different than it had a few hours ago, warmer, more complete somehow. Alex realized that whether he remembered their first meeting or not, he was glad Lily had decided to visit. "I'm sorry I forgot," Alex said. "It must be frustrating to have a meaningful conversation with someone and then have them not remember it." Lily shook her head. "It's okay. What matters is that the ideas survived even if the memory didn't. Your project is much more developed now than it was when we first talked. Maybe forgetting the conversation let you discover the ideas again in your own way." Alex thought about this. It was true that his best insights often came when he wasn't trying to force them, when he let his mind wander and make connections, naturally. Maybe some part of him had been working on the ideas Lily had helped him explore, even without conscious memory of their origin. "Would you like some tea?" Alex asked, suddenly wanting to be a good host. "I think I have some herbal tea that's supposed to be relaxing." "I'd love some," Lily said. "Thank you." As Alex got up to make tea, he realized that his room already felt different with Lily in it. The space that had been perfectly comfortable for one person now seemed designed for two. It was exactly the kind of thing he had been writing about. How spaces can transform based on the people in them and the connections between them. Alex found his small electric kettle in the tiny kitchen and filled it with water. While waiting for it to heat up, he searched through his cabinet for the herbal tea he had mentioned. He found a box of chamomile tea that his mother had sent him last month, along with some honey that he rarely used. As the water began to warm, Alex thought about everything that had happened in the past few hours. His quiet evening of working alone had turned into something completely unexpected. A woman he couldn't remember meeting had walked into his life and somehow made his small apartment feel more like home than it ever had before. When Alex returned to his room with 2 steaming cups of tea, He found Lily looking through his sketch notebook. She was being careful with the pages, treating his drawings with respect. This was another thing that felt natural about her presence. She understood that his artwork was important to him. "These drawings are much better than they were 2 months ago," Lily said, accepting the cup of tea gratefully. "You've really improved your technique for showing the emotional feeling of spaces." Alex sat down at his desk chair and turned it to face her. "What do you mean by emotional feeling?" Lily pointed to a sketch he had made of the college library's main reading room. "Look at how you drew the light coming through the windows. It's not just showing where the light is, it's showing how the light makes the space feel peaceful and focused. 2 months ago your drawings were more technical. Now they have mood." Alex studied his own drawing with new eyes. Lily was right. Somewhere in the past few months, his sketches had evolved from simple architectural drawings to something more artistic. He had been trying to capture not just what buildings looked like, but what they felt like to be inside. "Maybe our conversation influenced your work more than you realize," Lily suggested, sipping her tea. "Sometimes ideas need time to grow in our minds before they show up in our actions." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking their tea and looking through Alex's drawings together. The chamomile was soothing, and the honey added a sweetness that made everything feel warmer. Outside, the world was quiet now that the rain had stopped. The only sounds were the occasional car passing by and the gentle hum of the heating system. "Can I ask you something?" Alex said finally. "Of course. Why did you really come here tonight? I mean, if we had such a good conversation 2 months ago, why wait until now to visit?" Lily set down her teacup and was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. "I was scared," she admitted. "Our conversation that day was really special to me. You listened to my ideas about spaces and feelings like they actually mattered. Most people think it's silly to care so much about how rooms make you feel." Alex understood this completely. He had often felt like his interest in architectural psychology was too weird or too niche for most people to understand. "I kept thinking about visiting," Lily continued, "but I was worried that maybe I had imagined how well we connected. What if you didn't remember me? What if you thought I was strange for showing up at your apartment? What if our conversation hadn't been as meaningful to you as it was to me?" "But you came anyway," Alex observed. Lily smiled. "I came anyway. Tonight I was walking past your building on my way home from the library and I saw your light on. I stood outside for 20 minutes trying to decide whether to come up or not. Finally, I realized that wondering would always be worse than knowing." Alex felt a wave of admiration for her courage. He knew how hard it could be to put yourself out there, to risk rejection or awkwardness for the chance of real connection. "I'm glad you decided to come up," Alex said honestly. "Even if I can't remember our first meeting, tonight feels important too." Lily's whole face brightened. "It does, doesn't it? I was so nervous when I first walked into your room, but now it feels like the most natural thing in the world." As if to prove her point, Lily moved from sitting on the edge of the bed to leaning against the wall with his grandmother's blanket draped over her shoulders. The blue and white flowers looked perfect against her dark sweater. She looked so comfortable that Alex had to remind himself she had only been in his room for a few hours. "Tell me about your own living space," Alex said. "Where do you live?" "I have a tiny studio apartment about 10 blocks from here," Lily said. "It's really small, but I love it. I've painted one wall dark blue and I have plants everywhere. Lots of natural light during the day and good reading nooks." Alex could picture it immediately. It sounded like the kind of space that would reflect Lily's personality, thoughtful, artistic, comfortable without being fancy. "I'd love to see it sometime," Alex said, then felt his cheeks get warm. Was that too forward? They had just reconnected after a forgotten first meeting, but Lily didn't seem to think it was strange. "I'd like that," she said. "I think you'd appreciate how I've arranged everything. I tried to apply some of the ideas we talked about, creating zones for different activities, using light and color to influence mood." They talked for another hour about living spaces, about the psychology of interior design, about their favorite places to study and think. Alex found himself sharing ideas he had never put into words before. Lily had a way of asking questions that helped him discover what he really thought about things. Eventually, Alex noticed that Lily was fighting to keep her eyes open. The long day and the warm tea were making her sleepy. "You look tired," Alex said gently. "Do you need to get home?" Lily checked her phone for the time. It was almost midnight. "I should probably go," she said, but she didn't sound like she wanted to leave. "You could stay if you want," Alex offered, then quickly added, "I mean, you could sleep here tonight if it's too late to walk home safely. I could sleep on the couch, and you could have the bed." Lily considered this. "Are you sure that wouldn't be weird?" "Nothing about tonight has been normal," Alex said with a laugh. "But weird doesn't mean bad. Besides, it's late, and I'd worry about you walking home alone." "Okay," Lily said. "Thank you. That's really kind." Alex gathered some pajamas and his toothbrush to take to the bathroom. Before he left the room, he turned back to Lily. "I'm really glad you came tonight," he said. "Memory or no memory, this feels like the beginning of something important." Lily pulled his grandmother's blanket up to her chin and smiled sleepily. "It does," she agreed. "Maybe some connections are stronger than memory." As Alex got ready for bed in the bathroom, he thought about how dramatically his evening had changed. A few hours ago, he had been alone with his computer and his coffee cups, struggling to put his ideas about architecture into words. Now his room held someone who understood his work better than he understood it himself. Someone who made his space feel complete, in a way he hadn't known it was missing something. When Alex settled onto the living room couch with a pillow and spare blanket, he could hear Lily moving quietly around his room, getting comfortable for the night. The sounds weren't intrusive. They were the gentle noises of someone who belonged there, someone who fit naturally into the rhythm of the space. For the first time in months, Alex felt completely relaxed. His room, his home, his ideas about spaces, and belonging. Everything felt more real and more meaningful with Lily there to share them. As he drifted off to sleep, Alex realized that sometimes the most important connections happen in ways we don't expect. And sometimes the best memories are the ones we're still making. Alex woke up to the smell of coffee and something sweet baking in the oven. For a moment he was confused about where he was. Then he remembered. He was on the living room couch because Lily had stayed the night in his room. Soft morning light was coming through the apartment windows, and Alex could hear gentle movement in the kitchen. He sat up and stretched, working out the cricks in his neck from sleeping on the couch. Despite the unfamiliar sleeping arrangement, he felt more rested than he had in weeks. When Alex walked into the kitchen, he found Lily standing at the counter, fully dressed but with her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She had somehow found ingredients to make muffins, and the coffee maker was brewing a fresh pot. "Good morning," Lily said with a smile. "I hope you don't mind that I borrowed some of your kitchen supplies. I found flour and eggs and some frozen blueberries in your freezer." Alex was amazed. He barely used his kitchen for anything more complicated than making coffee and heating up leftovers. He hadn't even remembered that he had blueberries. "This smells incredible," Alex said, "but you didn't have to make breakfast." "I wanted to," Lily said. "It's my way of saying thank you for letting me stay. Besides, I love cooking in new kitchens. Every space has its own personality for preparing food." As if to prove her point, Lily moved around Alex's small kitchen with surprising efficiency. She had figured out where everything was and had organized the counter space to make cooking easier. The kitchen looked more functional than it ever had when Alex used it. "How did you know I had all these ingredients?" Alex asked, accepting a cup of fresh coffee. "I peeked in your cabinets and refrigerator last night while you were getting ready for bed," Lily admitted. "I hope that's okay. I was curious about how you organize your food storage." Alex laughed. "Let me guess. You have theories about kitchen organization and personality too?" "Actually, yes," Lily said, looking slightly embarrassed. "The way people arrange their kitchens tells you a lot about how they approach daily life. Your kitchen says you're practical but not really focused on food as pleasure. You have good basic supplies, but they're not organized for regular cooking." Alex looked around his kitchen with new awareness. Lily was absolutely right. He had Everything needed to make simple meals, but it was all scattered in random cabinets and drawers. He bought groceries when he needed them, but didn't think much about cooking as an enjoyable activity. "What does your kitchen say about you?" Alex asked. "That I think food is one of life's great pleasures, but I don't have enough space to be as organized as I'd like," Lily said. "I have way too many spices for my tiny kitchen, and I'm always trying to fit more cooking equipment into cabinets that are already full." The muffins finished baking just as Jake emerged from his room, drawn by the smell of fresh food and coffee. His hair was messy from sleep, and he was wearing a college t-shirt and basketball shorts. "Wow," Jake said, looking around the transformed kitchen. "This is the most domestic our apartment has ever looked. Lily, you're welcome here anytime." They sat around the small dining table that Alex and Jake rarely used for actual dining. The blueberry muffins were perfect, not too sweet, with bursts of fruit in every bite. The coffee was stronger and more flavorful than anything Alex usually made for himself. "These are amazing," Alex said, reaching for his second muffin. "Where did you learn to bake like this?" "My grandmother taught me," Lily said. She believed that knowing how to create comfort food was an essential life skill. She said that being able to make something delicious from simple ingredients was a kind of magic. Alex thought about his own grandmother and her handmade blanket, upstairs in his room. Both of their grandmothers seemed to have understood something important about creating comfort and belonging. As they ate breakfast together, Alex realized how different the apartment felt with 3 people around the table. Usually, he and Jake ate quickly and separately, rushing off to classes or work. This felt like what a home was supposed to be. A place where people gathered and took time to enjoy being together. "I should probably head home soon," Lily said eventually. "I have some errands to run today and I want to check on my plants." Alex felt disappointed, even though he knew she couldn't stay forever. The morning had been so pleasant that he didn't want it to end. "Could I walk you home?" Alex asked. "I'd like to see your apartment if that's still okay." Lily's face lit up. "I'd love that. But I should warn you, it really is tiny. My entire place would probably fit inside your bedroom." After they cleaned up the breakfast dishes together, Lily gathered her things while Alex got dressed. She folded his grandmother's blanket carefully and placed it back at the foot of his bed exactly where it had been before. "Thank you for letting me stay," Lily said as they prepared to leave. "Last night was really special." "Thank you for coming," Alex replied, "and for making breakfast, and for helping me understand my own work better." As they walked out of the apartment building into the bright morning sunshine, Alex felt like he was seeing his neighborhood with fresh eyes. The trees looked greener, the architecture more interesting, the whole world more full of possibilities. "Your building has good bones," Lily observed as they walked down the front steps. "The proportions are pleasing and the entrance feels welcoming rather than imposing." Alex looked back at his building. He had chosen the apartment mostly because it was affordable and close to campus, but Lily was right about the architecture. The building had a solid, comfortable feeling that made it seem like a good place to call home. They walked slowly through the neighborhood, talking about the houses and buildings they passed. Lily pointed out details Alex had never noticed, the way certain porches invited sitting and conversation, how some front yards felt private while others felt open to the community, why certain combinations of windows and doors made buildings look friendly or stern. "You see spaces the way most people see people," Alex observed. "Like they have personalities and moods and stories to tell." "Don't you?" Lily asked, looking surprised. "I thought that was the whole point of your project." Alex realized she was right. Somewhere in the process of writing about architectural psychology, he had started seeing buildings and rooms as living things with their own characters. It was such a natural way of thinking now that he had forgotten it wasn't how everyone saw the world. Lily's apartment building was older than Alex's, with more decorative details around the windows and doorway. The entrance hall smelled like old wood and had vintage tile floors that created interesting patterns of light and shadow. "This is it," Lily said, unlocking a door on the second floor. "Remember, it's very small." Alex stepped into Lily's studio apartment and immediately, understood what she meant about size. The entire space was probably smaller than his bedroom. But despite its tiny dimensions, the apartment felt spacious and welcoming. One wall was painted deep blue, just as Lily had described. Plants covered every available surface, hanging plants, floor plants, small succulents on windowsills and shelves. The natural light streaming through large windows made everything feel fresh and alive. Lily had created distinct areas within the single room. A sleeping area with a bed covered in colorful quilts, a tiny kitchen with open shelving displaying pretty dishes, a reading corner with a comfortable chair and good lamp, and a small workspace with art supplies and books. "This is incredible," Alex said, turning slowly to take in all the details. "It doesn't feel small at all. It feels perfectly proportioned." Lily beamed at the compliment. "That's exactly what I was trying to achieve. I wanted every square foot to serve multiple purposes and feel intentional." Alex could see evidence of the principles they had discussed: how light and color influenced mood, how careful arrangement could make a space feel larger than its actual size, how personal objects could transform a generic room into someone's unique home. "Your grandmother would be proud," Alex said, thinking of Lily's comment about creating comfort from simple ingredients. "You've made magic here." As Alex explored Lily's small apartment, he felt pieces of his missing memory starting to return, not clear pictures but feelings and impressions. The sense of meeting someone who understood space and design the way he did. The excitement of finding someone who could see architecture as art and psychology and poetry all at once. "I think I'm starting to remember," Alex said suddenly. Lily looked up from watering a plant near the window. "Remember what?" "Our conversation at Luna's. Not the details, but the feeling of it. The excitement of talking to someone who got it, who understood why spaces matter so much." Lily set down her watering can and walked over to where Alex was, standing. "What else do you remember?" "I remember feeling like I had found someone important," Alex said. "Someone who could help me figure out what I was really trying to say in my writing." They stood close together in the morning light streaming through Lily's windows. Alex realized that whether he remembered their first meeting or not, what mattered was this moment, and all the moments that would come after it. "Would you like to stay for lunch?" Lily asked. "I could show you how I've organized my tiny kitchen for maximum efficiency." Alex smiled. "I'd love that, and maybe afterward you could come back to my place and help me rearrange my furniture. I have a feeling my room could be even more comfortable with some expert advice." "I thought you'd never ask," Lily said with a laugh, as they began planning how to spend the rest of the day together. Alex realized that some of the best connections in life happen when we least expect them. Sometimes a forgotten conversation plants seeds that grow into something beautiful, even without conscious memory. To nurture them, sometimes the most important people walk into our lives quietly, sit down like they belong there, and smile like they've been waiting for us to recognize what was always meant to be. Looking around Lily's small, perfect apartment, Alex understood that home isn't about space or size or expensive furniture. Home is about finding someone who sees the world the way you do, who understands that spaces have souls, and who can make any room feel complete just by being in it. The morning sun continued to fill Lily,